Here we are at the Wivenhoe General Cemetery. No longer in use. The whole world seems to have gone over to lawn cemeteries. I really do prefer the older style. There's a bit more life in them. And I know how silly that sounds, but you can see more about someone's life. And this is Burnie, of course, so there was a undercover area, because when it rains here in the northwest, it really rains. Maybe they are still allowing a few people in. The cemetery, obviously, and Burnie's a bigger place. It was the third biggest city in the country, in the state. I'm not sure if it's been overtaken by Devonport. But this particular cemetery is big enough to be split up into denominations. So we have a Catholic section there, older section, Catholic section, C of E, also known as Anglicans and Episcopalians in some parts of the world. But you can see there's some fairly substantial gravestones here and markers, and a few of the higher ones, but not as many as there were in Ulverston or even Penguin. So I'll walk to the top corner and we'll work our way back. These things really mattered once upon a time in Australia. Kind of hope we're over that now, but you never know. Sectarianism can hang around in the underground like a lot of hatreds. But hopefully we're past it. Wow, interesting ones. Trevor Walker, ex-second AIF, or signed up during the Second World War, I would imagine. Having been born in 1920. Passed away at 51 in 1971. And his better half lived till 2020. 49 years later, that's a hell of a run. And Arthur Woolley Dixon, another ex-digger, probably Second World War from those dates. Yeah, it took him young. It had a horrible effect. And young Private Hudson, for H. Born, 1896. Lived a fair way past the First World War. Bit of a view of the size of this particular cemetery. About the same size as Ulverston, I think, just laid out a bit differently. And some more over there as well. So let's hit the road and have a look. As ever, we have the smaller plot markers, usually children. Annette Jane Nisi. 5 months almost. Yeah. Now continuing on from our Ulverston experience, 40th Battalion AIF, turns out it was a Tasmanian unit. Some were removed and put into the 60th to form a sort of a backbone for it because they were experienced, and something like 787, something like that, casualties on their first day in action. Not a pleasant event, so. But this fellow lived till 72, which isn't a bad run for someone who lives through that hell. And a brother gunner, Bombardier Blythe. The 5th Field Artillery Brigade. They call those brigades, they call them regiments nowadays, but it would have consisted of 3 batteries of guns and a headquarter battery. And he managed to survive. It was a big thing in the First World War. It was an artillery war, basically. And we did provide officers as well here from Tassie. Lieutenant Stott, DCM, so he was awarded a medal. This tiny little section of graves here is sitting underneath what you would describe as a widowmaker tree. They have fairly substantial branches that would kill anyone they fell on, I suspect. Which is why I've been loath to get in too far underneath them, even though the breeze isn't that strong today. Many, many ordinary lives. It's the ordinariness of it all. We've all got this to come. Beloved husband. You can see the average ages. Not that I've done the maths, but the people, men especially, dying in their 60s was nothing unusual, and particularly younger than that too. Here we have Arthur Hilton Collins, who passed away in 1961 at 48, and his good lady wife went on for another 53 years. Fair run. She was 99, he was 48. Life is full of interesting stories. And you can see the evolution of names over time. Don't see many Jones around these days. Hardly any Adelines, if any. Or Coras, nor Coras for that matter. Cora was my grandmother's name on the maternal side. And then Dulcie. Nan used to always talk about friends with those sorts of names. You just never hear it anymore. The thing you notice, Burnie being a working town, the pulp mill and the port, there's a uniformity to these graves. Very few stick out above. Everyone's in it together. Here's something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, but then it's a dual grave as well. But that doesn't seem to matter with most of them. They're all pretty much the same. But a little bit of extra there with the cross. And the Lance Corporal of the 15 Battalion. Again, you don't get many ruby or violets these days, but plenty of Bobs and Roberts. Private Stevens, another one from 40 Battalion. Yeah, we've got some interesting names there. The Dulcie, as I say, you don't hear many of. Caroline's, though, still around, quite big. Edgar Gar, Edna, not so much. John, of course. There's a few Toms coming back, but no Edgars, very few Edgars. Maybe a few more Harolds than there used to be, but nowhere near as many as there was back in the day. And I don't know if you know any Ethels. I certainly don't. If you do, drop a comment, let me know. Not a pleasant one. Precious baby died at 6 months. Cheryl Maxine. I'm not sure what the patination there is for. Maybe there are other individuals in there. Looks like it up the back there. There's markers, but old markers. That one I don't think you can see on the camera, but it says Mount JFL, but there's no dates or times or ages. It is possible that there were some rules about this part of the cemetery, it being the new section. New's a relative term. The older part, there is more variation in the grave markers. I find these train passing by there in the background, and I find these older markers quite interesting. And no amount of medical science will protect people from being accidentally killed. The only issue with these older ones is that they're harder to read. Harriet Whitten, I believe, beloved father of Thomas Whitten as well. I don't believe Harriet was the father. That would have been Thomas, I think. It's hard to read. Okay, here we go with a bit more monumentalness. In loving memory of our dear father Alfred Chatwin, died 19th of April 1900, and our dear mother Hannah Chatwin, died 30th of December 1921. And then William Raymond Chapman, the beloved son of the above, killed in France on the 31st of December 1916. Dear. Also Faye, who died at the age of 10 days. That's painful. But quite a large monument, and understandably so, I guess. And as we get into these older ones, the ages tend to drop or become more spread, I suspect. A wider range of ages. Sarah, who was a dearly loved wife of Alfred, died 27th of November 1900, aged 42. Look, it's... So an AIF grave here, Australian Imperial Force. If he was in the 51st Battery, it feels unlikely he would have been called a corporal, he'd have been a bombardier. But there you go. There's a little mystery to be solved. I suspect the council probably needs to get someone in here and clean things, because it's a bit of a sad state of affairs when you can't read the names. Bit of a clue when you see one of these headstones. Trevor, beloved son of M&I Hope, who died aged 14 on the 20th of November 1926. Oh dear. Yeah, these people did it a bit tough. Son who died 1938, age 27, but also Staff Sergeant Burley died of wounds in New Guinea on the 27th of November 1943. No greater love hath no man. Another 42-year-old, Hannah Grace Tuckett. So, 5th of December 1916. It wasn't a pleasant time to be around, eh? These shield-shaped markers were all the rage in the 30s. Perhaps all the rage isn't the word, but they were popular. So I think we've got Iris there at the top, if I'm filling in the missing bits, who died in 34. Then Malcolm died in 38. Yeah. And the shield does go back a bit earlier. That was 1923, so 25-year-old. Sandstone by the look of it. My Blue Mountains time taught me anything, it's to recognise sandstone. Our dear mother Sarah Crabb, perhaps. 1919 at 86. Good run. Not entirely sure why this one has a crown on it. But it does. And there we have both extremes. Charles Wilson, 9th of February 1909 at 27. And David Wilson, father of the above, died 1916, aged 73. I guess the evidence would suggest the 30s weren't the heyday for the crest, for the shield rather. That's Louisa Barfoot, 1914. So live and learn. And another variation on the theme of the shield, 1917, but that was a 3-year-old, so you'd understand why they pushed the boat out a bit with that one. Now this one is an unusual shape. William Oliver Lee, 28th of October as a 28-year-old in 1913. Gone but not forgotten. Very nice. Another 40 Battalion private there. Number 333, one of the early ones. Made it through to 1936. This is another one of those intertwined couples. Alexander Hamilton on the 19th of April 1915 and his good lady wife Christina on the 29th of May 1915. It's just some people that can't live without their partners. And in contrast to the last one, we got Fanny Joyce, who died in 1905, and a husband who didn't Bundy off until 1947. What's that, 42 years. Yeah. And as ever with the older style and the fencing around it, it's normally a child, but not on this occasion, 59-year-old, I think, from what I can make out from the lettering. Yeah, 59. In 1904, I think. Now we have here something of some substance. Wander in and have a look. We have the funerary urn on top, and on this face, in loving memory of our dear mother, Susan Kemp, 1911 as a 67-year-old, and also Captain James Kemp, who died on the 18th of January 1882. And beloved children of above interned at somewhere else. James, who died at 11, Benjamin, who died at 9, and Catherine, who died at 14. As well as their other son, Henry, who lived to 86. On the left-hand face, as you look at it, William, who was the husband of Myrtle, who died at 41 years of age in 1925, and their son, who died in 1931 at age 22. Vera, I think, who was also about 22. I can't really read that, which is a shame. And on the right-hand side, Jack, who died in 21 as a 16-year-old, Charles, who made it through to 74, and Agnes, who was 84, down the bottom. And on the rear, so to speak, of the monument, we've got Eliza Ritchie, who made it to 73, Alex, who made it to 93, Benjamin 92, and Bertha 93. Really do have all ends of the spectrum there. And another shield from the 20s, Phyllis Clark. So I stand corrected, the shields were not all that big in the 30s after all. Now this is interesting. Christina, beloved wife of Fred Collins, interred in Zion back in 1926, age 59. Zion's a couple of hours drive anyway from here at the moment, so it would have been a very long trip back in 26. Yeah, and a mining area as well, so who knows what happened there. Bit of a ring-in from the 26th Battalion, George Lee. If you're after monumental cemetery work, this looks like the biggest one here, or one of them. Clearly of a Christian persuasion. Quite an elaborate piece of work, carved out of marble by the look of it. And it's Eliza Elizabeth, beloved wife of W.E. Freeman, 1922. And then William himself in 1934, at rest. Rather like the look of an obelisk. But this was for 23-year-old back in 1929. Jadams, 74 I think, back in 1908. So just the two of them. But quite an impressive obelisk. And speaking of impressive, the top of this one's broken off. I have no idea what was up there. In memoriam of Captain William Jones, late of Newbaranga, Anglesey, North Wales, who died at Burnie, who died at Menai, Burnie, 1907 at 65. I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar. Clearly a nautical reference there, written in Welsh above. So. And Martha, who was his widow. No date for her. Oh yes, 3rd of May 1921. So a few years after Captain William. The nautical theme is quite obvious. The old section, so we can't really avoid these sorts of things. It's Stephen, who passed away at the age of 11 years, and Una at 14 months. Amelia 70 and Albert 80. Some people do it tough. One here, we'll have to get a bit closer to try and read it. Another one of those ones where 2 children have passed, so I think we've probably covered more than enough of those. All carved by hand, rather impressive piece of marble. George Illingsworth, 46-year-old, and his good lady wife was 71. So he went in 1911 and she went in 1939. And we have here a sapper from the 4th Field Company of Engineers, David Hopkins. Now there's no markings on this, but this is very much an older style grave marker. Another sizable marker with a little bit of an obelisk in the centre, but topped obviously with the cross. With John Tracy, died at Burnie in 1920, aged 74. A scan back across from the bottom of the hill. So many lives, so many stories. And all that's left is a piece of granite or marble or even sandstone.